All right. Happy Monday, everybody. How are you doing, South Carolina? I am Leah. I am the Executive Director of Build Carolina, and we run the SC Coach program. So glad to have you here on this Monday night. We are planning to be here every Monday night at 7 o'clock with one of our awesome SC Codes mentors, professional software developers who live and work in South Carolina, to really be here to answer your questions and kind of tell you about their story and their journeys. So tonight we have a very special guest, Sam Joseph, who lives in the Charleston area and works there as well. So he's going to be here to share his story, and we are here to answer your questions. So don't forget about throwing those questions over in the comment box, and we will get to them. Let us know too kind of what you're learning, what you're working on this week. We'd love to talk about that. So without further ado, let me grab Sam.
How are you doing?
Hello. I am great. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good. Thanks for being with us. I kind of see a very interesting picture in your background and your head. Tell us about this picture.
So the picture is actually a friend of mine, and he's very kind to have lent me his study. That is actually his grandfather and the Pope. So it is
Pretty cool.
pretty special picture, right?
Yes. Well, I'm
So
sorry that your
yeah,
head will have to be kind of covering up the Pope here for us to see you.
I'll try to move out the way.
No, that's okay. You are the star of the show tonight. So welcome, Sam. Thanks so much for being with us. And I'd love to kind of start with you just sharing a little bit about really your story, starting with kind of education and just what your career path has looked like and how you kind of ended up becoming a software developer.
Awesome, I'd be happy to. So I had a rather, I say, unconventional start to my software engineering career. Um, a year ago, or really before this, I was actually, in university, I studied political science, and my goal was always to be a lawyer. And, that didn't, I guess, materialize as I wanted to or was hoping. And so continued to work, and I was actually in book publishing and in sales. And that was actually, did me very well. But I never saw it as my long-term plan, I suppose. And so, as part of my job, I learned something called VBA, which is a Microsoft sort of office programming language. And through that I guess, it started, led my mind to wonder, like, if I can do such awesome things with this language, what could I do with a more robust language? And so I started to study JavaScript and HTML and CSS, and did that for a few months on my own, did the various free resources like Free Code Camp. One of my favorites is Code Academy, even though you have to pay for it. And I don't get anything out of saying this, but it's hands down one of my favorite resources, and was hugely helpful during my start to my career. And so, about a few months into it, I discovered one of these coding boot camps called Hack Reactor. Hack Reactor they have campuses really all over the West Coast. And so in May of last year, I attended Hack Reactor. That was a 13-week boot camp, 80 hours a week, Monday through Saturday, non-stop coding. That's all you do is live and breathe it. And on the other end of it, I became I came out a fully professional, fully functioning software engineer. And now I sort of split time between a family business, which is self-publishing. And so I'm currently building the website using a library called React. And then I also do a ton of React Native development, React Native being a framework for building native apps using JavaScript. And so it's a really awesome, framework to know. And rather unconventional. I've probably been doing this for about 8 to 10 months. Before this, I didn't know a thing about coding, and now I live and breathe it 80, 90 hours a week of just doing what I love.
So great.
Yeah.
I do want to jump in, a little deeper into your story, and if you don't mind, Sam, just covering up that lovely photo a little bit more so we can see your whole face.
There we
Thank
go.
you. So the decision to kind of go from, self-learning, kind of self-paced, figuring it out on your own, to something more formalized for you, a code boot camp, and not just anyone, but one that you physically went and lived there, right, for a few months?
Yes. So
So
13 weeks. Yeah.
yeah, so that's a big decision, and one that it's a big investment of your time and resources. And I'd love to have you kind of talk a little bit about what that decision looked like for you.
I was pretty nervous when I initially, started the interview process. I was 26 at the time and was worried about, okay, I should be well into my career at this point, not, I guess starting a brand new path. And, really software engineering is such a community. I don't think there's any industry like it where people are just so willing to bring you in and talk to you and tell you what they know, and in return you tell them what you know. And I just feel like software engineers grow that way. And so for me, that was always, they actually had an online option. And for me, going and actually like living and breathing and being with 12 other students who that was their goal, which is living and breathing programming, it's not cheap, but to me, it was a personal investment. It was something I had saved up money, and, I guess to me, it was an investment in myself and my education. It's a really, while you're doing 80 hours a week, it's only 13 hours a week to get to that, I guess, postgraduate level. And so to me, I was just, invest in myself, and really just worth, in my opinion, worth every penny. And I think it's paid itself back 10 times. And, I get to wake up every morning and do what I love. And to me, I think that's the goal in life, is
Right.
to not to hate to wake up in the morning and go to your job, but to be like, yes, today is a new day. So
That sounds awesome.
well, yeah, well worth it. Yeah.
Scott is here. Hey, Scott. Good to see you. He just had a comment, said 13 weeks, 80 hours per week. That's a strong commitment.
Yes, yes, it absolutely is a strong commitment. It's, I obviously didn't work during those 13 weeks. So, there's the sum, I guess, for tuition, and then definitely want to save up some money to be able to just dedicate your full time. But they do, a lot of these boot camps offer the online option as well, which are definitely longer, but you don't have to do 80 hours a week. So more reflective of, I guess, people's work schedules, etc.
Right.
But for me, it was like concentrate, put your head down, and just live and breathe it for 13 weeks.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah.
For any of you who are watching who have other questions for Sam about what a full-time immersive code boot camp looks like, I definitely encourage you to join our Slack channel and connect with Sam with some of those really specific questions if you have some. Scott, it looks like you may have a couple questions. So while you guys are letting us know kind of what other questions you may have, Sam, can you talk about when you came back to the Charleston area, a new software developer, somebody who is still pretty fresh in this business, how have you sort of been able to connect with others in the industry? Or can you talk a little bit about sort of your networking abilities or kind of philosophy around that?
Definitely. So, software engineering, again, to reiterate, it's a community, and everyone is so willing to help each other and pass down that knowledge, because, software engineering, there's so many different ways to accomplish something that, no matter the experience or whatnot, it just really pays to have conversations and to be able to speak with people. And so, funny enough, Slack's been a huge resource for communication. We at work use a platform called NetSuite Oracle, and there's a huge Slack channel. And if I post a question within seconds, that's answered. I know Discord is another chat room option where different frameworks and whatnot will have chat rooms for people to ask questions. So that's really been my resource. I will admit I don't know a ton of people in the industry, and I would say like if I could change one thing, that would probably just having more because it's such a great resource to have. But between being able to ask people questions in these chat rooms, Stack Overflow, and all of that, that's generally been my sort of resources for learning and reaching out to people. Definitely. So,
Oh, I'm
you
so
know,
sorry, you guys. I forgot I was muted. Sam heard me, but you guys didn't. Sorry. I was just asking, sorry, Sam,
no.
about kind of coming off of the self-taught and then going to a code school experience and kind of knowing JavaScript and starting there kind of with a nice foundation. How did you figure out how to continue to learn and continue to teach yourself going forward?
So I will admit, I think Coding Bootcamp had a huge influence on that. While you have all these amazing resources if you need any questions answered, they really encourage you to learn. And I think that is the most important skill as a software engineer. I think if you're not learning, while SE's codes is just the start, and you will spend your entire career just learning, frameworks, libraries are always changing. And so I like Coding Bootcamp had a huge effect on how, sort of learning to learn. And then, I read so many Medium. I have a Medium membership, and so I read that every single morning. There's Egghead is another really amazing resource. So again, just like learning the online, like learning the amazing resources to be able to tap into. But yeah, I think Bootcamp definitely had a huge influence on that ability.
That's great. And so you have been one of our mentors who has done some in-person mentorship as well as some online. You led a couple of courses over at James Island Library, right?
Yes.
And worked with a couple of students who were new and who were kind of going through SE codes. Tell us a little bit about what that's been like for you to kind of go from the learner to the mentor.
It's been a really awesome experience. 8 months ago, again, I barely knew a thing, and then to be able to, I guess, sit in front of students and be able to teach them was definitely an awesome experience. For me, getting to, I guess, cover things that I learn that stuff, and then getting to see students who are starting that journey, who have that curiosity and that desire to learn more and are very interested. I think software engineering, especially if you're doing the unconventional, you have to have that like interest and interest for it, I think. And so like getting to work with students who are like just starting out on that journey but have that interest, like I love. There's one student who I really appreciated having, and I could tell, he was so curious and excited about it, and just generally was like happy to be there. So I think that's definitely one of my favorite parts. And then, getting to tell my story of like, having the fancy computer science degree or really quite unconventional start, and it's definitely possible. And don't let it, like the fact that you don't have all these criteria affect you.
Yeah, I think we may have had one of our last 5 or 6 mentors who actually had a CS degree. So you're not alone in the kind of non-traditional path to software development. for, the folks who are here with us tonight, many of them are probably not so far removed from where you were about a year ago. And today you're being paid real dollars to do development work, right?
Yes.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to kind of do the client work side of this? I know you've got your one main client, which is the family biz, but you've got some other work too. So talk a little bit about that side.
So in my spare time, I do a ton of freelance work on Upwork, which has been an amazing experience, getting to do a ton of mobile application development. And, it was definitely, and still is daunting. I started doing freelance work, and when I was actually searching for, I was hoping to planning to go, work for like a bigger engineering firm, and then started doing Upwork on the side. And, my first job, I completely fell flat on my face, and was definitely a little discouraged. But to me, I think just like being, you have to go out there and be a little bit more audacious if you don't have that computer science degree, and just put yourself out there. And I promise you'll surprise yourself. You've learned this amazing language, which very few people, it's not easy. And so just continue to, I guess, be audacious and try. But yeah, it was definitely daunting, and still is. They look to you to be that sort of technical lead. Generally these are people who don't have a ton of technical background, and so they look to you to be that technical guidance. And so you kind of, you learn a lot, and you're forced to learn a lot, and I love it personally. And I decide my own hours. I decide I work 80, 90 hours a week, and so for me, it's I love that. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and talk a little bit about, I guess, Upwork specifically, or really if there's any kind of freelance job that you're trying to go after. And Johnny has a question about if you have tips for winning bids on that, especially if you're starting out. And my question is really the same. It's kind of like, what if you see a job that you think is a pretty good fit, but maybe there are some requirements or some things that you're not an expert in yet? Would you go out and try to learn some of that first, or what's your approach?
So I would definitely don't do what I did on my first job and try to do something you don't know. Fortunately, the client was really nice and was forgiving. But I would say, you're going to be inexperienced. There's no point to me, I was pretty honest and upfront about it and just told them I was green. I went for jobs that didn't, on Upwork. I'm not sure about the other platforms, but on Upwork, they had 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, and expert. And I would not apply for the expert and always try to go for the beginner and intermediate and the sort of smaller, easier jobs. So, probably going after a full project in which you would be expected to project manage might be a bit audacious, but, I've helped people with their homework before, just fix little bugs that take like a few hours. And then once you start to build that little bit of credibility on those platforms, that's when it really takes off. I used to tell clients that it would take me, X amount of hours, but really it would take me X plus, 5 or whatever. And that was just to, I guess, give off the illusion of being experienced. So, don't be afraid to I guess you're taking a little bit of immediate loss for future, because that's what these platforms are all about. It's reputation. So, that's what So
is JavaScript still one of your favorites, or where are you on the technical scale?
JavaScript I'm very biased when I'll talk about how much I love JavaScript, but to me, there's endless job opportunities with JavaScript. It is the third pillar of modern day web development. And so there will always be a need for JavaScript developers. a front end, you don't need, the fancy computer science degrees, but even then back end, there's so many opportunities. And, it's the only language I know. And I definitely have aspirations of learning new languages, but for right now, it's more of what will benefit my career. And, there's so much, like I'm learning GraphQL at the moment, which is a query language, which is, I guess, technically a language, but not quite like a fully fledged coding language. SQL, there's so many things to learn in between that. And I think to me, you want to master one language before moving on to you have your whole career to worry about that. And so, I always encourage people to focus on that language, and that language to me is JavaScript. But I know a lot of people will argue with that statement, but to me, JavaScript is a fantastic beginner, first language to learn.
JavaScript brings out lots of feelings for people. So
Yeah.
here's one of my great reasons for working from home right now. This is Hattie.
Nice to meet you.
So, can you say bye? Oh, okay. So we're 3-year-old life, you guys. It's tough. Sorry about that.
No problem.
JavaScript, yeah, it's something that I feel like a lot of people either love it or hate it. So,
Yeah, it was like a Curio post, and it was like describe the coding languages, and someone described it as the Wild West of coding languages. And it's definitely, it's, compared to like a C# or like Java. But again, to me, it's one of these languages that is probably not going to go away anytime soon. And if that's not your language of choice, use it as a stepping stone. But to me, it's just a fantastic starter language.
yeah. And just to clarify, Scott was asking, so you are self-employed, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about when you are, either going after a new client or you're interested in learning a new technology, what's kind of your process for finding the right resource, I guess, to go and learn that particular thing? Is it always kind of starting in the same place?
Documentation is always where I'm going to go to first. Documentation is not always the most clear of resources. The documentation is not equal, but that is always going to be the first place I'm going to look to learn. But I love different resources like Medium. I could not recommend more getting a subscription to that. They send you the email with all the articles, and I read that every morning. And like Egghead is another amazing resource. So always start in documentation, but then all the amazing like video, and I love to read as well, being in self-publishing. And so definitely any sort of resource I can read, and then it's just read, watch videos, just, yeah. And then trial by fire. Yeah. And then start to actually work on projects or not even projects, but your own projects to just try them out.
So, for anyone who's kind of standing in the shoes you were in a year ago, anyone who's a little bit newer to development and sort of trying to figure out, is this something I really want to commit to doing professionally? What is your advice for those people?
Just because, when you're looking at it, when you first started, it's just like this mind-boggling, nonsensical language. And so my advice would be, even if you find it hard, even if you have sticking points in which you're like, how do I figure this out? Everyone goes through that same thought process, and they're just as confused as you are, no matter even if they have the fancy degree or not. This stuff is confusing. So my encouragement would be just to stick with it and don't be discouraged because you don't immediately get an incredibly complex subject matter from the get-go. And just, learning to break through those sticking points, that's what will make you a better software engineer, not the fact that you get stuck at a certain point. So
Yeah, that's really good
I mean, that's something
advice.
like I wish someone had told me, is like, you will be stuck, you will find it tough, and it's just continue.
So, for those of you who are watching tonight, we are definitely mostly here to answer your questions. Here to hear, of course, more about Sam's story, and we love to kind of learn about, the people who are doing real software development right here in South Carolina, across the state. So, it's always really good to see faces and hear those stories. So, of course, we really appreciate you sharing, Sam. Y'all keep those questions coming in. And in the meantime, Sam, are there people that you know or people in your family who do this? Or is this something that you kind of fell into and just discovered that you loved?
Very much fell into. My family actually is book publishing and bookstores. That's 4 generations, and so it just very much fell into my lap. I learned this language called VBA, which I talked about at the beginning, and that was kind of like my gateway into learning, seeing what these languages could do and becoming curious. So yeah, it was very much not something I grew up around or just discovered.
So you can still kind of be part of the family business, even though you are not yourself in book publishing, but you are a software developer, which is pretty cool.
Bring this technological angle to it.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the cool things that I like about software development is, it's sort of like it's something for, it provides skills that are really important in every single industry. So it's almost like no matter what you're really interested in, whether or not you're interested in the technology itself, you can be interested in healthcare or, government or improving your community or any type of industry and use these skills to help that particular industry out. And that's, a huge reason to me why I'm an advocate for people learning to code.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't have to be your first love, something you grew up loving. You can bring that skill set to a field, and every single field needs technology, especially nowadays with what's going on, virtual meetings and everything. I feel like it's going to make a further shift to virtual. And so, yeah, I mean, technology makes the world go round, and it's not just software, it's every industry.
So is there then any kind of, commonality that you have seen with the people that you work with, the people you learned with? Like, who are the people that really succeed as software developers? What are kind of those, inherent traits that you see as common for people who succeed as developers?
I think it's that the love of learning is that curiosity, the desire to just want to learn more and more and more. And, it subject matter. And so just wanting to learn more and be willing to put in that time to develop those skill sets and learn new skill sets, because it really is never ending. And so, and that may sound daunting to some, but to me, it's awesome. And like getting to learn new things every single day is one of the things I love. And so to me, it's that infinite curiosity and desire to learn.
That's awesome. Well, I only have a couple more questions. If any of you have any other questions for Sam, be sure to write those down for us, and we will get to those before we leave tonight. But so we've kind of covered your educational history, how you got to be where you are today as primarily a self-employed software developer in the Charleston area. Do you plan to stay in Charleston?
Yes. There's a huge need for it in Charleston. It's Silicon Harbor now, so definitely. I love Charleston. So.
Are most of your clients based there?
That's probably a huge reason why I guess I'm so happy to stay in Charleston is everything I do is remote. And so I guess the family business being in Charleston, but then everything else, my clients are in Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and New York. So again, that's one of the beauties of technology. You can do it anywhere.
So quarantine has not changed your day-to-day life too much right now, right?
Only made it more hectic, to be honest. Fortunately, I've been incredibly busy, and all I need is my laptop. Well, I love having big screens and everything. All I need is my laptop to do my work, and so get to do it on my couch now.
Yeah, I think that's that flexibility, that freedom to be able to kind of work from wherever is a huge draw for a lot of people who are thinking about software development. So Scott is asking more about your boot camp. He has some questions about how much it cost and are there any in the Carolinas? I can help answer that if needed, but
So I know there are a few in the Carolinas. But Hack Reactor is just one that it has a fantastic reputation, and the West Coast is where technology is. While Charleston is doing an amazing job of really attracting technology companies, the West Coast, Los Angeles and San Francisco, Texas, Austin, like all those places, like that's where and so I guess that's why I decided to go out west. But I know I believe it's a few in Charleston, correct?
yes, there's JRS Coding School, Charleston. I'm not sure if any of the others are currently running. There's Carolina Code School, which is one that we help out with up in Greenville. And then there are a lot of remote code schools, several in Charlotte and Atlanta as well. Those all are, at least 3 months and full-time. So similar to what you experienced with Hack Reactor. There's another question about JavaScript. It seems like everyone keeps mentioning JavaScript around me. Would you recommend jumping straight into it, or would you recommend learning HTML and CSS and then JavaScript? What do you think about that?
I think that's an excellent question. HTML and CSS first. That's actually the order that I learned it in. And so, a lot of what JavaScript is manipulating HTML and CSS all the DOM, but still HTML and CSS. And so really to be able to do it at a professional level, you do need to know HTML and CSS. You don't need to know it like the back of your hand, but still so yes, definitely recommend HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
Yeah. And on the SC Codes platform, we have a fairly short course that's JavaScript Concepts. That doesn't take too long to get through that one, and it kind of gives you that introduction. But then if you take front-end basics, that's a bit more in-depth, and you do go over some HTML and CSS and JavaScript in that course. So if you haven't started any JavaScript yet, I would not be hesitant at all to recommend for beginners to take that JavaScript Concepts course. It's a nice little quick overview.
Yes, definitely. Relearning that stuff will only do you good.
Yeah. All right, you guys, if there are any questions that we haven't gotten to, or if you want to continue the conversation with Sam or any of our mentors online, please do join our Slack channel. Actually, let me grab that link for y'all. Sam, while I'm going and finding that link, and I'm going to put it here in our comments, is there anything that we have not gone over tonight that for those people who are watching and who are kind of beginning that journey into software development, anything we haven't touched on that you want to make sure that they hear from you?
My own this would be just to be dedicated to it and love it, and love to learn, and I think that's really all you need, and just to be passionate about it. So yeah. Oh yeah, I think we did a good job of covering everything.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Sam, for your time. I know everyone here would want me to thank you for them and for sharing your story and for being an SC Codes mentor. For the rest of you who are here, thanks again for being with us on Monday nights, and we'll be here again next week. If you have any questions in the interim, you can always reach us on Slack and add those questions there. So, Sam, thank you so much, and hope you have a great week 8 of quarantine or so. Not that any of us are counting. It's fine.
Who's counting?
All right. Well, I really appreciate it, and we will talk to you all next week.
My pleasure. Have a great one, guys.
Bye, guys.